I try not to spend time not with people.
You try not to spend time not with people?
That's right. So
clarify that one.
If I find myself, man, this is going to take me 4 hours by myself in front of a computer, whatever it is, I prefer not to do it. Right? Somebody else can do the 4 hours and I want to parachute in with the result. Because I would rather spend my time collaborating, talking to people, visioning, solving problems, and not actually like manufacturing it. Like, can Lior write the emails that go out in the company? Yeah, I have the skills. I have the copywriting skills to write the email. I have the username password to the email marketing platform. I can do it. Is this the best use of my time? Probably not. It's going to be better if I create more opportunities and I move the needle in the bigger ways than doing the thing. It's one thing to know that you can create value. It's another thing to decide if you should.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Mission Daily. I'm your host, Stephanie Postles, and I'm so excited today because I have someone so amazing joining us. But first, one of the hardest questions to answer is, how do you make money? And then right alongside that, it's who should I work with? What projects should I work on? How should I invest my time, my work capital, my social capital, all of that. And to help me answer these questions is a dear friend, Lior Weinstein. Lior, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So to give you an introduction, and you can add to it if you'd like, Lior, you are a visionary serial entrepreneur and a technology enthusiast. You have built and exited multiple companies. Your first one you started at age 14, which we're going to get into that. You've developed mobile apps and web services used by millions globally, published multiple patents on AI, blockchain, and machine learning, and now you're the founder of a new company called CTOx. Lior, how's that?
That sounds right. I mean, that's great. I'm not sure how to follow that.
I mean, the TLDR is you're an epic human.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so glad you're here.
You know, it's interesting to hear it like that because I so look forward to what I do. I rarely look back. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see like this quick snapshot.
Yep. Yeah. So when I was thinking of describing you, my one thing was you're just amazing. You're a great friend. And so, of course, I'm excited when I got to dive more into your actual bio because I pulled this from many different areas and I'm sure I could have added a lot more. But today we're going to be discussing a lot of philosophies because that is kind of how I met you. Like those were the rabbit holes that we got into, even though you've done all these things. I love how your mind works. And so that's where I want to start today when it comes to your ability to tap into people and how you think about starting things. And I want to start with the story of you being 14 and starting your first company. Give us the scenery. Where were you? Why? Yeah, the background on that.
So I'm originally from Israel. So this happened then. At the time, digital receivers were just getting into the country. And this is the same era as all the kind of console started. So PlayStation 1, the first PlayStation. And as a kid, I had like a Game Boy and a Game Gear. And I just thought, and TiVo was like a thing in the US, thing they just started or relatively new thing. And I thought, man, that would be so cool if we could do games for those digital receivers, that they actually had like a memory chip and they could do processing. And that's in contrast for the people who remember of just analog receivers that you used to plug into your TV and you can like flip between channels and so on. So I had that thought, and I remembered at the time that like my sixth grade girlfriend, her mom was doing something in like advertising. So I'm like, hey, so I asked her, hey, can I speak to your mom about this? And I was kind of pitching this concept of creating games. And sure enough, she at the time had relationships with, she had like an advertising company. And she had relationships with those companies. And she basically told me, hey, yeah, if you guys can build it, then, you know, we can do something. And what I did at the time, I basically asked my friends, I'm like, I had a great friend and she was an amazing designer. And I had another great friend, amazing coder. And I just asked him, hey, let's do this thing together. And that's how it started. And it was actually like the equivalent of like an LLC, you know, here in the US. And as a kid, you can't, you know, register it yourself. So you had to like have your parents do it.
Did your parents register it for you?
Parents registered it. And we actually worked on that for a long while. At the time, you know, we made money. I think the equivalent was something today, probably like $600 a month or something, which, you know, for 14-year-olds was a lot of money. And it was a lot of fun. Then, you know, high school started and life became busy, you know, so we moved on. But that was the first time and that I thought to myself, oh, I want to get into business. I can build a company. I should build a company. Nobody told me I shouldn't build a company. And I told my parents that at the time, and they were very supportive. And my father also made a couple of introductions to people he knew about, like games. He didn't know anything about it, but he knew someone that knew something. So I found myself in somebody's house basically pitching, this concept. Wow. And it felt very natural. I wasn't scared about it because nobody told me otherwise. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to do it. And I just went with the flow with everybody that said yes. And I just figured, well, I'm just going to explain what I want to do. And as people tell me why I can do it or what I should do it, I'll just take it from there. Mm-hmm. And that was my first kind of foray into the actual like business world, like a company and invoices and money moving around.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting about that is fast forward to today, I feel like that's still your vibe. Is
same thing.
I have a vision and I don't have to know exactly how to do it. I have a community. I have amazingly smart people that I surround myself with, and this can happen. It doesn't just take me. How did you do, like, where did that come from? Because I think that's what so many founders struggle with is, they're used to doing everything on their own. I do it best myself. I mean, that's where many of them get caught up, is in that, revenue range that you can't get past because you don't know how to call in the help and find, the team that can really push you to the next level. So where do you think you learned that, and how did you hone it in? It's
interesting. Like if you think about kind of a story arc. So I also did it when I was a kid, in like elementary school. Like I wanted to do like a class newsletter, mm-hmm. right? Like a newspaper for the class. There was a lot of these examples. I remember so we had this newspaper, and I'm like, wow, it would be cool if we had like cheat codes for games. These are all like DOS games, mm-hmm. Windows games. And it would be cool if we had like a crossword puzzle. And I didn't know how to do those things, but I had a friend who was like a great gamer. I'm like, can you just write, cheat codes for like Commander Keen or whatever the game was at the time, and Doom, and another one, crossword puzzles, another one for like funny stories or jokes. We had like a comic strip mm-hmm. kind of thing. And that was already in probably 6th grade, 5th grade, something like that, those ages. And in all those cases, I just said, okay, this is what I want to do. And as a kid, it was actually younger, exactly to your point of saying, I want to do this. I'm just going to start asking people and see if they want it. So mm-hmm. the first signal was like, am I the only one that wants to do this? And the big skill that I kind of created over time is to share a vision. Mm-hmm. So not share the how, not kind of focus on, but if you do it, you have to do it once a week. Like I wasn't focusing on the impediments, on what are all the things that can go wrong. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we had this kind of newsletter and we can publish mm-hmm. it? And I think the opposite thing happened to me, though, similar to a lot of founders over the years. As I gained skills, then I could easily fall back into that trap of saying, I will do it by myself. Mm-hmm. I will code it by myself. I will. Because as soon as I got a skill that I was confident with, let's take the newsletter as an example. So all my friends were writing. I did the kind of editor letter, mm-hmm. Like this issue is about da-da-da. And then at night before we, published whatever publishing is in that context, I remember we used like my copier at home. My mom had a home office, so we used the photocopier, and there was like 40 kids in class. So we're like just copying it 40 times and then collating it and putting the staples in and all that. So those were skills like, I know how to do that. I can do that. Mm-hmm. And then I did. So I wasn't that, I didn't have the hook at the time to think, even that I can have somebody else do. Partly, I was the youngest of 4 in my family, so I didn't have another like younger sibling to say, you do it. Mm-hmm. I was in. As I grew older and got more skills, I definitely fall into that trap over and over again of doing. And I think I started getting out of it again probably about 10 years ago. After I had the opportunity to build and sell a couple of companies, I realized if I really want to scale, having a mental model of saying, I want to be in charge and not in control. I want to be, in modern times, I would say in the back of the Uber and not the front of the Uber, mm-hmm. right? So how can I set the destination, ask somebody to turn on, turn off the AC, go left, go right, stop, go slower, go faster, but somebody else is holding the wheel, looking at the road, and that's the relationship between us. Mm-hmm. And now I basically try like everything to do that. One thing though, I still like to do the recon. Mm-hmm. So when there's a new company, new task, I try to figure it out kind of, some people call it just enough to be dangerous. I call it kind of just enough to be practical. Mm-hmm. And so if I actually have to ask somebody to do something, I understand enough of it. So I have a sense of progress. Like, is this actually making progress? Can this work? Can this not? Where are the pitfalls? And then I let go. So I don't let go completely, but I certainly developed the mindset of saying, I really want to make the vision happen, and there's no reason for me to be the one that actually makes it happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I always think about that when starting new projects of what can I understand so that I can hire someone. So I need to know a little bit, but then I think it is a slippery slope to being like, well, now I just know how to do it. So I'll just write it myself, do it myself. How do you keep yourself in check? I mean, are you constantly keeping yourself surrounded with people that you're like, oh, obviously this person's better, or this one's better? Like, how do you make sure that you pull out?
I think there's a danger, and it's very common to see with people that feel fairly comfortable in whatever their business is and whatever their domain is, to get education, get skills, and practice them. But it's much easier when it's completely foreign to you. Meaning, if you need to do something that's like, well, I need to go to a meeting and it's a conference in China. I need to, you're not going to be like, well, I guess I'm going to learn Mandarin. Like, it would be very obvious to you, like, I should get a translator, or ask them if there's a translator. So when something is way off base, it's easier for us to detach ourselves and actually do the easier solution. So if something takes you, 20 minutes walk, or a 40-minute walk, it's right in that cusp of, should I walk, should I take a car? But if something takes 3 hours, you're okay, I'm definitely going to take a car. And with the car, it'll take you 20 minutes. And so it's exactly those kind of tasks. What I try to do now, because most of what I optimize for is relationships and spending time with people, then I try not to spend time not with people.
You try not to spend time not with people?
That's right. So
clarify that one.
So what I want to do, if I find myself, man, this is going to take me 4 hours by myself in front of a computer, whatever it is, I prefer not to do it. Mm-hmm. Right? Somebody else can do the 4 hours, and I want to parachute in, with the result, when it comes. Because I would rather spend my time collaborating, talking to people, visioning, solving problems, and not actually like manufacturing it. To the extent I can. Sometimes if, time is tight, then okay, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and do it.
Yeah. So at what point did you switch to this more relationship focused, I want to be around the right people, work with the people? When did that happen?
I think like very actively, in terms of like, this is a decision that I'm making forever, moving forward, was probably almost 5 years ago.
So what happened 5 years ago?
I was taking a sabbatical year. My second son was born. And so I have 3 kids now. All 3 are under 10. And after my first son was born, which was after one of my exits, it was great. He was great. And I had plenty of time, and it was a lot of fun. And about a year and a half later, I got involved in a startup again. And what had happened was I went back to my previous behaviors, which was like 18 hours a day, all in, or that's how I started. But then every night came, I'm like, whoa, I need to, give him a bath, read him a story, whatever. And the struggle was there because I cared. I think when you have kids or stuff like that, and you don't really care about your role as a parent, then it's not as much of a struggle. Mm-hmm. It's a real struggle when you do care. And I was constantly battling between my professional identity of like, I'm going to get this done, it's going to be great, we're going to, whatever it takes, and me really liking being a dad and a husband and everything related to that. So but I stayed in that environment for almost 2 years. And then my second son was born, and then it really hit me like a freight train. I'm like, this modality of mine is not going to work as well. And I was still optimizing for business success. Like, is this a good business? Can this make money? Can this, be considered successful, or whatever it is? And I just realized that's not as much of a priority for me. So we took a sabbatical. When I say together, my wife and I just said, okay, I'm not going to do this thing. We're going to travel. We're going to, focus on the kids more. And after about 9 months, I told my wife I should really figure out what I'm going to do next, because it was a bit much of not doing a lot of activities. And I realized from all the previous ventures that I was in and projects that the thing that makes me the happiest is the people that I spend time with, and not the thing that I'm actually doing, not the subject matter, not the project. It doesn't really matter to me what the project is. Certainly if I wear a technology hat or a marketing hat, once you have the scaffolding and the formulas for these things, you're pretty industry agnostic. But the people are not. So I realized, man, if I'm going to be on Zoom, if I'm going to be on in meetings, or if I'm going to go to a conference, I really want to like the people that I'm working with. And if I'm around people I like, then the money will come, the time will sort itself out. But if I find myself in conversation and I'm like, man, I finish a meeting and I need a break. Like if that's my reaction, like this was really an energy kind of vampire, not as a person necessarily, but as an environment, then I'm not going to be happy. And if I'm not going to be happy, I'm not going to have a good life. And if I'm not going to be happy and have a good life, my kids and my wife and everything is not going to be great. And the opposite is also true. So if I am happy, I am going to have a good life. My kids are going to have a good life. My wife is going to have a good life. And all the relationships are going to be great. So about 5 years ago is when I really pivoted to saying, no, that's my number one filter. Like, put the business aside. Do I want to spend a lot of time with this person for many years? And if the answer is yes, and they happen to be in a certain business, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm in that business. Like, it doesn't really matter to me as much.
How do you find the right people? Like, how can you tell if you like someone and you want to be hanging out with them for a long time? Is it intuition? Is there like things that you look for where you're like, no, you're probably a shitty person, I'm going to pass you?
I look for a lot of no's. So I think in a world, like if you're well positioned to have opportunities, right? So meaning if you know people, talk to people, go to places, you're in communities or whatever it is, you're going to stumble upon a lot of things. I get, offers for ventures and investments, every week. So most of what I try to do is say no to something. So I have a few models for no, I'll share them. And then if I didn't hit any of the no's, I'm like, oh, this is, probably a yes.
That's what happened with me.
Yes.
So
exactly.
quick.
That's right. So no's for me, they are the easy ones. So I think a lot of people have the no a-hole rule, right? Like I'm very sensitive about that. And if I can be in an environment that proves that out very quick, it's really great. Like if we go to a restaurant and it's classic, like, are you kind to the server? Because if you're not, I honestly couldn't care less how good of a business person you are. Like if we're sitting in a restaurant and you're utterly ignoring or like being very, serious or not friendly with the server or making them rush or whatever, I'm like, that's, you should probably just not be in a long relationship. So those kind of things, meaning their attitude to other people. It's easy for people to have a good attitude for somebody that they want to work with, right? Because they're asking for money, they're asking for expertise, capability. So it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter to me how you treat me. Obviously, if they also treat me bad, then that's an easy one, but that's not as common. So if I can be in an environment where I see how they react to other people, certainly strangers, that's a very good character filter for me. The second one, you have the kind of basic metadata of stuff. So even with my team, I kind of like to tell them, hey, mean what you say what you mean, and don't say it mean. Okay, like this is one life. Like it's nothing here is worth, a lot of conflict. This is not, nobody, we're not in our businesses. We're not in the businesses of somebody dying and stuff like that, God forbid. And it's a work environment. And we work, 8-10 hours a day, which is like we sleep. It's a third of our lives, if not more. Certainly when you're an entrepreneur, it's most of your life one way or another. And I think it's very important to have a very positive work environment. So if they're giving me signals that they're not sharing those values of a positive work environment, of having perspective to life, and like how is any small thing, do you make it just like kind of an elephant out of a mouse, kind of situation? That's another, big no for me. I think a lot also is the attitude. Like, are you kind of half cup empty, half cup full? So do you have a positive attitude to life? And those are pretty big kind of axe size decisions. And I usually get no's pretty quick. I mean, I realize somebody, if they're presenting this behavior of they're like negative or unkind, or they think in terms of human hierarchy, like they're better than their whatever employees or clients. I'm like, those are very, and those reveal themselves fairly quick. As far as like, is somebody going to be in a very long-term relationship with me? Then I really look for, do we share values around our clients and our businesses and how we look at business building and venture building? And then our partners, like how do we treat them? Do we just look at it strictly like it's, business? Or it's more? If the entire conversation is constantly on the mechanics of business, it's utterly not interesting to me, because business to me is just a vehicle to do something. And yeah, those, I really look for no's more than I look for yeses.
Yep, I like that. So what about money? What's your thoughts on money? I kind of mentioned in the beginning of the episode, we're going to talk about how to make more money and how to view the philosophy of money and the exchange of money. Tell me your view on that.
So money is interesting. Money, I think a lot of kids are fascinated with money. They want to make money, they want to buy stuff, and I started trading stocks when I was about like 4th grade. And this was pre the era that you could just log into a website and, buy and sell. And I was fascinated by it because we had a newspaper that came in every day, and it has all the tickers from yesterday and the close price and all that, and just learning about that. So I think I was fascinated with money from a very early age, but it took me many years to figure out what money really is and what's the utility of it from a pure philosophical perspective. So one of my mental models on this is that the only thing you can do with money is to give it to someone else. And the core concept behind it is, if you clean your house, you're not going to move money from your bank account to your bank account. Right? There's nothing, with your own money, you're not just going to give it to yourself. And you're not going to give money to an animal. You're not going to give money to an object, right? The only thing you can do with money is to give it to someone else. Now, the question is, why are you giving it to someone else? You're generally giving it to someone else for a transaction purpose, for some kind of a trade. Maybe you're giving it to charity because you want to feel good and, help some cause that you care about that's value aligned with yours. Maybe you want to give it to get a phone and not have to learn how to, mine ore and learn engineering and hardware and software, and you can just pay a few $100 and get a pristine device that opens the world for you. Maybe you want to give money for somebody to make you coffee or food. It doesn't matter whatever it is, but when money leaves your hands, it goes to another human. But the flip side is also true. So every time you make money, it's because you just did something for someone else. And the did thing is creating value. And the concept of value also took me years to figure out. And one of the definitions that I love the most about this is a value is something you act to gain or keep. If you don't act, first of all, it's probably not valuable to you. And the only thing you're pursuing is to gain, like it's to add something or to keep something, which is another form of gain. And that definition really allowed me to kind of look at things and saying, okay, any human behavior, you're operating through a set of values. And the values are, what are those things that you want to gain or keep? And then what are you willing to do to gain or keep them? How valuable someone is generally some kind of a description of how much are you willing to do to gain or keep it. So when something is super, super valuable, like your kids, for example, you're willing to go through a lot, right? Through anything. A lot of parents are like, end of life. Okay, I'll die, I'll do whatever, which is no higher value if you're willing to die, right? But also certainly for, with money and other activities or effort versus small things of like, well, this coffee is not worth $20, but it's certainly worth 2 or 1 or whatever it is. So money is a good way to kind of keep score and help humans translate what are they actually willing to do. And for me, that's also when entrepreneurs tell me, oh, I want to sell my company. I want to make so much money. I'm like asking, oh, what do you want to do with the money? And they're like, well, I just, want to retire. I'm like, well, what do you want to retire with? Like, what do you want to do? Because that's what money allows you to do. Money just allows you to do stuff. Specifically, it allows for other humans to do stuff for you or instead of you. Now, a lot of people get stuck on it. They're so stuck on the amount of money they're going to make or when they're going to make money, and they don't really think about what are their values? Like, what do they actually want to pursue that money is going to allow them to do?
That sounds good and great. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, how do I know if I'm valuable? Like, how do I know if I'm skilled enough and I bring value to something? What are some checks people can go through to figure out, like, am I worthy of this money exchange? Or how do I make sure I am? Or how do I test the market right now and know whether, I'm valuable for that or not?
So a few years ago, that startup that I was involved in when my second son was born, I tried to figure out like how do people make more money, like as in principle. Meaning, if you want to lose weight, you need to really think about one thing: eat less calories than your body needs, and everything else is just what we call an engineering problem. So if you want to do fasting, if you want to do high carb, low carb, keto, that's just a behavioral thing that's going to make you spend less calories than your body needs without getting into the rabbit hole of other elements. But in principle, that's what it is. Spend less energy than you put in less energy than you put out. With saving money, same thing. Spend less money than you make. If you spend less money than you make, you're going to save money. If you want to do it with cash envelopes, with apps, however you guard yourself and manage your money spend and balance it towards your income, you're going to have this effect of saving money. But if you want to make more money, it's a hard thing to think about. It was hard for me at first because it's not work harder, work smarter. One, those things don't mean anything because work harder, you want to sweat, when you work smarter. I mean, I know plenty of not very smart people that make a lot of money. And I know plenty of not very, hardworking people, the way we would look at it, that also make a lot of money. So those things immediately say that they're not truth. Like as soon as you have evidence that something is proving out, then it's not true. So I came up with this model around income. And I said, okay, if you want to make money, take responsibility for activities that create value for other people. And those are multiple variables, right? So one, if you're not the one that's taking responsibility or at least known for being accountable for it, you're probably not going to be the recipient of money, right? You're not going to get it. If you're not doing activities that create value for another person, and value is perception, like we talked about that, then it's also not going to translate into money. The activities that create value are a function of your skills, right? So if you know whatever you know how to do, those are activities you can do. And then other people is probably the biggest thing. So, in business, we would call this markets, right? So the same, if you're cleaning my house, you're probably going to make X amount of money. If you clean Bill Gates's house, you'll probably make more money for the same activity. Right, so same activity, different person, different money, up or down. Same value, different activity, probably a different person. And if you do all the things, but you're not the one taking the responsibility or known for the responsibility, you're not making money. I think this is very common, definitely in bigger corporate, where you would have people that are doing the work and they're not getting the credit. And because they're not getting the credit, they're not getting the promotion, the bonuses, the opportunities. And that's part of what, the ladder of business is. Like, how do you do more, but also known? How do you become known for the one that's doing it? And with that formula in mind, you can think for yourself, well, first of all, the easiest variable of all these things is, who am I creating value for? By far the biggest. I think the biggest change, that's why when we look at markets, we're trying to understand in any business, in any venture, like, who is our customer? What are we giving them? What are they trying to do to act? What are they acting to gain or keep, right? How do we identify their values? And then how can we help them get there? How can we shortcut? Instead of them doing 20 steps, can we make it 18 steps or 2 steps, right? If you're managing to create that kind of technology company, for example. And if we can nail those things down, then you're valuable. Now, the bigger question is, do you want to do that? So I think with my businesses, just like we were talking earlier, making the decision of who are you in that pipeline. Like, can Lior write the emails that go out in the company? Yeah, I have the skills. I have the copywriting skills to write the email. I have the username, password to the email marketing platform. I can do it. Is this the best use of my time? Probably not for everybody involved. For everybody involved, it's going to be better if I create more opportunities and I move the needle in the bigger ways than doing the thing. But for the email marketer, yeah, that's what they're getting paid to do. They should do that. So I think it's one thing to know that you can create value. It's another thing to decide if you should create the value.
Yeah. So when thinking about like how to always be the customer and think about like, how do I build value for the customer? How do you get into that mindset? Because I think what I've heard a lot of people say is customers don't know what they want normally. Like if you went and you surveyed your customers, they're going to tell you all these things, and then you build the thing and then they don't actually want that thing anyways. So how do you actually find what's going to be valuable to, a future customer or a current customer that you're trying to offer something new to?
Great question. I actually have a book recommendation. It's a little pink book. It's called The Mom Test.
Ooh, I already like it.
It's a great book. And it's a book about customer discovery, which was originally innovated by 4 Steps to the Epiphany with Stephen Blank, or at least for me, that was my first exposure to that world, which is how to discover your customer. Like how to know that this is actually, first of all, a customer, and then secondly, something that your customer is. The reason it's called the mom test is because of that problem. So people do a lot of false positives and false negatives, and both of those are issues. And the context of that is when you talk to your mom, for example, like, hey, here's an idea, I want to do this. And a mom is this avatar of a person that likes you and wants to support you, right? They're going to say, oh, this sounds great idea. You should totally do it. I would totally buy it.
Honey.
Yeah, exactly. Great idea. You should totally do it. I would do it. Go for it. And which in many cases is a false positive, right? It's not the reason why they're encouraging is because they want to encourage, because they want to keep the relationship. They're not doing it, consciously, of course. So how do you ask customers or prospects questions? So even your own mom is not going to give you a false positive. And the big principal concept is you want to appeal to their memory and their past and not their future. And the X-ray of that is that you really want to look at their behaviors. So when you talk to someone, if I ask you right now, hey, why'd you buy that?
It was pretty.
Yeah, it was
I like
pretty.
the colors.
That's right. But when you picked it up, you probably didn't think about that. Something else went through your mind.
Yeah, I'll look great in this.
Even if that, right? And then I would argue why you didn't see other things that you in the store at the same time that you thought you wouldn't look great at. And so really nailing down what's the reason why somebody's acting, meaning they're pursuing a value because they're acting. If they're not acting, they're not pursuing a value. If they are acting, they're pursuing a value, which again goes to that core concept of if somebody's just describing in words their opinion on something or their future vision on something, but there's no action associated with it, then even though intellectually they're reasoning their way into it, they're thinking, oh, this is what I would think or how I would do, how I would look at it. Behaviorally, they're not. And if behaviorally they're not, that means it's not an actual value. If it's not an actual value, you're not going to have a product to build. And the reason you mentioned, I think Henry Ford had this famous saying, if I asked people what they want, they would have told me a faster horse or something like that. Right? And because it's one thing to ask about a product, which I highly recommend people don't do it. Like there's a time and place to do that versus investigating the problem. And part of investigating the problem is their problem. It's one thing to say they're pursuing something, and it's another thing to say that they're having a hard time doing it. But understanding the magnitude, like the importance of that problem is going to give you a sense of the money, right? There's something might be an inconvenience, but it doesn't pass the threshold of money. Or maybe it does pass the threshold of money, but not the threshold of you having a good business model. So I generally try to look at I have this big frame about a lot of things. Don't trust what people say, never doubt what people do. And if you focus on their actions and behaviors, it's going to tell you way more about them and the likelihood of a repeating behavior than anything else. And that's why when you do these questions, you ask questions about how and when, because you're trying for them to describe what they actually do in a situation. The ideal one, of course, if you can, is like observe them in action.
Yeah.
Right? That's the best kind of customer discovery. Just watch them eat at the restaurant if you're trying to do something for restaurants. Watch them use the software if you're trying to change their processes.
Yeah. This makes so much sense based off your mentality towards building MVPs, get something out there, try it quickly, see if someone even clicks buy or wants to sign up for that thing. And yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So when thinking about finding value, identifying good founders that you want to be a part of their team or you want to advise or invest in, how do you spot a good opportunity? Like you get them often. I know many people are always wanting your energy into their companies and, they all want you around. So how do you pick the ones that are actually good opportunities?
I generally have two frames of projects I engage in. First of all, I have a big frame around nonprofit or for-profit. And if it's not like zero money or a lot of money, I don't really have the in-between, because startups and ventures, they have X amount of chances to succeed. So I don't try to do something that has a low chance to succeed and then success looks like not a lot of money. So first of all, I try to figure out, do I like this person enough to work with, just optimize for a relationship? Do I want to be in a relationship with them, with their company, with their industry, with their clients, whatever that is. And over the years, I learned of some industries that I like to be in more and some industries that I like to be in less. But the first filter is definitely who's the partner. Do I want to work with them? And then if it's a business opportunity, I would say in most cases, it's an opportunity I fabricate. So I think it's rare that somebody comes to me and they're able to articulate the opportunity. So I think what they're able to, they might pitch me something, but that's rarely the thing that I actually get excited about. So when they pitch, I try to imagine the environment. So what is the business environment, the intellectual environment, the physical environment, and what can be done with those tools, with those set of tools, right? It's kind of like you go into, a forest and you're like, okay, there's something on the ground. You have a knife, duct tape, rope, like what do you do? And something I heard a few years ago about opportunities, that opportunities don't come and go, they come and go to someone else. And the context of that is opportunities are fair to you all the time. So really the key differentiator is, do you grab them? Do you actually pull the trigger? And with the stream of stuff that come to me, the easiest filter is the person, because it's a high threshold. So most of it is like an automatic no. But the ones that are a might be, I try to figure out what is the impact, assuming we're successful. Like how big can it be? Now, if I have two opportunities that, let's say both of them can be amazing opportunities, like make a lot of money, it doesn't matter to me if something makes 10 million and this makes 100 million. I'm not going to choose the 100 over the 10. The other variables are probably going to be more important to me, because I have a good sense of enough. Like saying, you know what, this is good enough. From my action potential, I'm willing to pursue this because of the person, the market, the industry. I'm highly curious, so I have a fairly low bar of curiosity. So I can do a lot of B2B, a lot of B2C. I think with a lot of things, like if it feels like I've already done it, then it's most likely not interesting to me. So if somebody comes to me and says, oh yeah, we'll do this marketing funnel and we'll sell something you already sold, and I already know, I literally have the playbook, like I have the Word doc kind of thing, the Google Doc, and I just don't want to do it. I'm like, I'm not going to learn anything new. This is not going to improve my life in any which way. And I prefer not to do it. Or at that point, I'm like, I'll just give you all the things and we can be in a meeting once a month. I don't need any money. I'm not going to take accountability for anything of this, and we'll just have a good time, be in that kind of a relationship. But if it's something new and it has big action potential, like we can do a lot, and I like the customers, I like the impact. There's also a lot of things to discover in the process, then I'm usually very interested. I think the big thing for me is that I just don't care about the industry as much, because I can be highly curious. It could be hardware, software, cyber, nature, travel, medical, like it doesn't really matter. And then the real differentiating element is the partner. Like, is this going to be a good relationship to have?
What have you not discovered yet? Like, or things that you're like, I haven't looked over there yet, but that is something I want to get into, or I want to expand my mind into this area. There
are some areas of life. So there's kind of big 5 areas that I look at: education, finance, travel, family. And I try to think, how can I have businesses in those areas? Because that means I'm providing value to people in those areas, and I get a front row seat to something. So some of those areas I haven't developed ventures yet, but I very much want to. Travel is a big one for me. We travel a lot with the family. I travel a lot with my kids. And having a business in travel is very interesting, but something that makes a dent, and it's going to be nice to have. So some areas, these categories, I look at them like they're going to enhance my life. And if I can have businesses in those areas, that means I can have better access. Health is a big one, just get access to the best, whatever it is, with the right people. So I think in all those areas, in all those kind of, think about it like verticals, it's endless. I mean, I think by definition, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know that I haven't found the best partners for those, avenues just yet.
What's something that's changed your life for the better over the past couple months or 6 months of the year? Like you said, you're kind of seeking the things that are going to expand your life and obviously bring happiness and joy. And, you can explore curiosity into different areas. Like what's something that you're like, this was life-changing or pivotal?
I think there's a lot of things in life. You have the principles that don't change, and those are long-standing. And I pursue them, for a long while. I think with some of the new capabilities in the market now, with AI, with also the attitude of people for remote work and AI, there seems to be a lot of these playbook opportunities that historically were still playbooks, but they might have taken 18 months to play out. And now the same thing can play out in a month. So you're kind of get into this hyper testing, and I can be way more trigger happy on piloting stuff. And that's a big difference that I would say is definitely in the past 6 months, because the technology wasn't quite there for me to get other people and actuate them and activate an idea in a short amount of time. I think software has done this for many years, but now just the pace and the access of just English becoming the most common programming language is really changing the dynamic of how soon, if we have an idea, we can be at dinner, have an idea, and we can pilot it during the dinner. And that's a new thing.
Yep. Yeah. It's wild how many of the tools are now democratized in a way that anyone can throw up a landing page, anyone can build a no-code app, anyone can get in ChatGPT, and you can build your own GPT, and now you can sell that. And
that's right.
I mean, that's just in the past couple years. So to think like where we're headed and how many creative people who didn't know how to code maybe are now going to be able to leverage their ideas and get things done and out there in a way that, they never could really before without grabbing a whole team of engineers and getting them to work on an app that's going to take for 6 months.
Or spending years learning something. I mean, the thing about learning, you only have to learn things once. Once you know it, you know it. And now the way you can learn things and the speed you can learn things, and not even learn, you can almost skip the learning, which is pretty amazing. Like if you wanted to build a web application right now or a mobile app, you have these examples all the time now. You see that on Twitter, you see this on Hacker News. People are just building like complete services within hours and days. And what they know is English, meaning they have clarity of thought and they have courage. So they can go in and they say, I don't know what to do, but they can literally go into a ChatGPT or a Claude or whatever it is. And they say, I have no idea what to do, but here's what I want to do. And you can just say that. Just say that. Without, just open your mic, just say that with all, the other words that come up with your mouth, all the ums and ums. And these tools are going to guide you towards the solution. So it just makes it so accessible. It also empowers a lot of my team members, a lot of my partners to do the same. And I, even though we work together and they've seen me using similar tools for years, and as companies, we're very early adopters and so on, I constantly need to remind them, if you're moving your mouse or you're clicking your keyboard, there's probably a way for something to do this. We don't know what, but there's probably a way. So just being mindful about it. At this point in this year, we've had great search engines for 2.5 decades, right? And we've had search engines in general for 3 decades. So nobody needs to be trained or think, I don't know something, I'm going to go online and I'm going to search for it. Like, you don't need to train people. You used to need to do that. I remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, you need to, there's a website you can go to and you can find information. People didn't have that intuition. And now they don't. And now with these new set of tools, you need to remind them again, hey, there's a thing that can do this. And you just go to that website and you put some words, and that's enough of a snowball to get it done. So that's, I would say that in the last 6 months, and because of the exponential rate of change, which used to be measured in years, still impressive. I mean, we're, this modern internet we have is 25 years old for the most part, And huge rates of change every 5 years of attendance. But now the rates of change are like escalating in months, which is amazing. So that's by far one of the things I'm most excited about.
Yeah. So with this many new things coming online, because more people are able to, put out projects within days, is there any downside to now there's just tons and tons of things that are going to be flooding the market? Like what could we see happen because of this, democratization of tools, and any idea can get out there now, where before it was maybe like a select few could get, big things out. Now anyone can. Like, what does that look like for curating the best tools and making sure those ideas can get found? Or is there going to be too many? And then it's kind of like all the AI content right now. Like, there's so much, and it's all just this slop content that's out there. And you're like, okay, this got terrible very quickly. Like, let's not do that. Just all these, you've talked about it, all the AI written LinkedIn posts. You're like, this is not authentic to you. But what could this look like in the world of launching companies and products and, rapidly?
I'm a very AI positivist. Like I'm definitely an optimist in the category, and for a few reasons. One, in principle, it's not a new problem. So the inflation of content or the inflation of products, it's not a new problem. It's always been there. It's always been there with the advent of new technology. And I remember I did a workshop. I was on stage a couple of years ago about AI, and this was still brand new. So most people haven't used it, and only a few people had heard about it at the time. And somebody asked me about like SEO and content. Aren't you afraid the internet is going to get full with, AI articles? And I'm like, I don't know about you. Last time I went to Google, they were about Google results for anything I put in. So it doesn't matter. We already have an inflation of content written by humans, a lot of not great content written by humans. So if anything, there's probably going to be an uptick of quality content with these tools as opposed to a downside. But it doesn't change the problem of selection, which is really the problem. That's why, when Google, their claim to fame was, hey, here's the top 10. Right? We developed a lot of technology, we spent a lot of money, top 10. Don't worry about the Google results behind me. Here's the top 10. Right? We really think that what you need is on this page right now. Right? And they do it fast. You don't have to wait. And so I think, one, it's not a new problem in terms of the production of opportunity. I think it's a huge, there's now these very common models about people talking about the first $1 billion revenue single person company. And it's very real. Like we see this now, you have solo individuals that are making $5 million, $1 million, $10 million a year or more as just a single owner company with a newsletter, with an app, things that you've never heard about. And so granted, if they can do 10 million now, 20 million now, why not 50x it if you're adding all these capabilities? If now suddenly everything can be accessible. So let's say you're making $5 million a year with a newsletter, and you have plenty of those examples, super niche specific newsletters written by single individuals. But now that content can be immediately accessible in multiple formats, video, audio, images, comic, multiple languages, and not just multiple languages, multiple reading levels. Because you can go to these tools and say, write this for me in Spanish and write this for me in Spanish for a fourth grader. So you're not just increasing your access to other humans, you also increases your access to other human ages and understanding levels. So why not just make $1 billion? So I think it's an incredible opportunity for humans to unleash and find, their people, whoever they want to be heroes to. Remember years ago, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say, somebody likes yellow Smurfs, right? There's 1,000 other people somewhere like yellow Smurfs. And that was really the big opportunity of the internet. The fact that you can log in and find another person that likes the same esoteric, weird thing that you do, and they're on the other side of the planet, and you're both connecting on the same website or same chat room or whatever it is. So now it's no longer just connecting for social purposes, like chatting with people, writing with people, and so on, or just publishing content. You can actually provide value for something that they want to do. They're trying to do stuff, and now you can fabricate the thing. Build the software, build the feature, build the app, whatever the new modality is, augmented reality, doesn't really matter. And we've seen it also in design. When Photoshop came, it was like, whoa, like all these artists are like, what do you use? And then we see it now as well. We see these AI tools come into design space, and they're just, you can create incredible things, incredible interfaces, incredible images with words, with your vision. And we've seen it with software as well. If you were a software engineer in the late 80s and early 90s, you needed to be pretty good. Like, it was a lot of training to figure that out, how to code in assembly, in C, and those kind of, deeper languages. And now you can go to a boot camp and in 12 weeks get a junior developer position. And now you don't even need to do it because you can go to one of the AI tools and say, I want to build a web application that does this. And within 30 seconds flat, you get it. So I'm very optimistic about it, of the ability for people to create value to other people as solo people or just like small groups and build a great income, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions of dollars a year. It doesn't really matter. It's an income that you like and you control your destiny. And the amount of income depends on who are you doing it for, what problem load is on, other business problem. But now you can do it. And the fact that people have the ability is incredible to me. Yeah,
no, I agree. We had Kevin Kelly on our podcast back in the day, a few years ago. And he talked about, finding your 1,000 true fans. That's right. And how at that point he still said, it's hard to find those 1,000 people. You can find them maybe on Reddit and, they're in these places. But then to build something for those 1,000 people, like, that's the era that we're in now, which is awesome. And he kind of predicted it, which I feel like he's predicted a lot of things.
Well, he's incredible. His book, The Inevitable, is incredible. And even now the algorithms, in one thing I do like about keeping my hand on the pulse a little bit is that I still look at what's going on in the coding space. I still look at what's going on in the marketing space. We constantly experiment. I still log into the systems and look at it. One of the interesting trends that are happening right now, this year, is that the frame is that the creative becomes the targeting. So for years, a lot of the ways we used to improve advertising is use these filters and heuristics about, okay, what are we going to tell the algorithms if it's, on Meta, whatever it is, or Google, here are certain filters that, don't show this ad or only show this ad to XYZ. And their targeting became so good that they're able to take your creative and just figure out who's the person that's going to respond to the most based on what response you want. If you want an impression or a click or a lead or a conversion, whatever that is. So now your ability to both produce those creatives and actually rely on the algorithms to find your 1,000 true fans is absolute. I recommend, to anyone to give it a shot because it doesn't require the sophistication that it took even a year ago, let alone 5 years ago.
Yeah. So before we got on the mic, we were talking about creating a great past, like your principles on that. And I would love for you to share that because I thought it was beautiful thinking about parenting and even myself and how to be present. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it looks like to create a great past instead of focusing on the future.
The thought originally came to me, we were on a trip with a few other parents and kids and other parents that travel with their kids, and they were sharing how the reason they do it is to give their kids a great future. And the parents were kind of echoing the same sentiment. And when I thought about it, I said, that's an interesting thought to me because I don't think I can give my kids a great future. And everybody was like, what do you mean?
Terrible dad.
Yeah, terrible dad. And what I meant was, if I think of myself 30 years ago, I couldn't have possibly predicted or projected, forecasted, whatever you want to call it, how my adult life are going to turn out. And more specifically, what adversities am I going to handle? And the reason I've had the confidence to do the things I've had is because of my past experiences. So I realized I can't give my kids a great future, but I can give them a great past. And I can give them a great past by making decisions today. Like what's gonna become a part of their history. And I know that if they have a good history to rely on, they can handle whatever life throws at them. And I look at the same with my companies or my relationships or myself. I try to be like a external observer on this and say, okay, what experience is going to be more useful here for me in the future without obsessing as much about the actual future and what's going to come.
So are you planning for the future? Are you setting goals? Or are you more just like, I'm going to be present every day. I'm going to pick the best thing today and just keep building out a great past?
I think there's something I oscillate between. So first of all, my kind of goals are more system goals. So I think about pace more than I think about distance. So let's say if we're trying to grow a business, we're trying to think, okay, how many customers or leads do we have a day or a week? Let's say it's 10 or 100. What does it mean to go from 10 a week to 15 a week as a system? What does it mean to go from 15 a week to 30 a week as a system? And then, and that's the same for like weight loss. Do you want to lose 20 pounds? I don't think about the 20 pounds as much as I think about what do I need to do to lose 2 pounds a week? And if I need to lose 20 pounds, I'm just going to do that for 10 weeks. But the reality is life is just not, it doesn't stop. Your body doesn't suddenly stop once you lose the weight. The business doesn't suddenly stop once you put the goal, like you hit the goal. And so I think optimizing for the systems of existence is more useful for me than the goals. The goals, though, are useful for other people. For me, not as much. For me, the system goals, the pace goals are more relevant for me to think how to react to things. Like, should I be anxious about it? Is this a fire drill or not? Because I'm trying to optimize for generally the environment and not so much a specific number, because maybe I made a bad decision with the number. But other people do like goals, like numbered goals, specific goals, and they're motivated by it. So usually if I'm in a collaboration kind of mode, if it's in a company context or something, we do have them. But I also share that philosophy with everybody. I'm like, guys, here's the goal, here's the number, and we do like a good, better, best. So, good goal, better, best goal. But really, let's focus on the systems that make the goals inevitable. And when I used to run an agency a few years ago, it was an agency, we did both marketing and technology services for companies. And I went to the companies and I told them, hey, let's do mostly upside. Okay, so we're going to do a fixed retainer, fixed cost, but give us uncapped commissions on net new revenue we create for the business. And normally when agencies and service providers, they pitch and promise a result. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know the output. I can promise you input, effort, and I can promise you process. And if we do those things, we can create an environment where growth is inevitable. And that means we scientifically do all the things, we try. And if something works, we do more of it. If something doesn't, we stop. If something works and we do more of it and then stops, we do something else. And at some point, you just stop doing all the things that don't work and only do things that work. And you get into this flywheel where the only thing left is growth.
Yep. But you kind of need a goal to get your systems, don't you think?
I think you need a direction.
Yeah, okay.
I think you need a direction and you need to know why the direction is there. And I think it's useful to have a threshold. My problem with goals is that versus stepping stones or milestones, right? Is that their frame is very finite and just life is not finite. So I think it's better for me to think in stepping stones and milestones that describe the systems or the pathway, but all of that is directional to where we're trying to go. And then is the place we're trying to go, is that exciting for everybody involved? Is that exciting for the customers? Is that exciting for the employees? Is that exciting for the business? Whatever that is.
Okay, so I want to hear about right now, where you are today. What are you working on? What are you building? What are you most excited about?
I do a few things right now. Most of the things in my universe is joint ventures. So I find other entrepreneurs and companies that have a deep understanding of a pain or problem in their industry. And we build new companies together, like money side by side, opportunity side by side, whatever that is. And I choose it mostly based on partners. And within that, one of the ventures I'm most excited about is CTOx, which we launched this year, which is an accelerator for fractional CTOs. So we don't teach people how to be CTOs, like that's kind of a working assumption of joining, but we teach them how to be fractional CTOs. And the big understanding there, this is something I've done for a few years since I've had the agency and a little bit before. There's all these businesses that are not tech businesses, meaning they're not in the business of selling software or selling technology services. They're tech-enabled businesses, which really all businesses are. It doesn't matter if you're a barista in a shopping mall, you're using payment systems, you're using scheduling, you're using something, right? And having somebody that can give you, from a technology perspective, all of the lessons and none of the scars and guide you and course correct and help you build out is extremely valuable. And CTOs is also very much of an international thing. Like I'm originally from Israel. You can be an Israeli CTO for an American company. You can be a German CTO for an Argentinian company. And that's very different than the other functions of a business. it's not the same thing, not as much for CFOs and CMOs and chief operating officers and so on. Everybody can do something, but CTOs are truly more culture independent and industry independent than others. And what we decided to do there is help CTOs become fractional CTOs, which means how can they attract, how can they convert, how can they serve multiple clients and enable those businesses, and then let those businesses also not carry the burden of a full-time salary of a CTO. I'm very excited by it because I get to do both things that I like. I like engineering, I like technology, but I like marketing and sales. And a lot of CTOs are missing that piece. They're missing that. How do I get clients? How do I talk to clients? How do I serve clients? How do they promote themselves, as opposed to just having one client, which is really just a job. So right now, those ventures, between the joint ventures and CTOx, are the stuff that I'm most excited about.
That's amazing. So for CTOx, where do you see it going in the coming years?
I think we can grow a huge community of fractional CTOs. And one thing that we're about to launch this year is CTO.com.
Pause at that domain. Come on, CTO.com.
It's not a cheap domain. I didn't get it at GoDaddy. It didn't lapse registration. The owner knew what he had. But I was very excited when the opportunity came up because to me, a CTO is just a technology leader of whatever that is, right? So I remember at 12 years old fixing my dad's computers at the office. I was the CTO of that office, right? And that's the same as the CTOs of some of the largest companies in the world. It's the same sense of control and sense of excitement and sense of translation and capability. And I keep thinking about this coagulating moment and visuals. I think people that grew up in technology between 70s, 80s, 90s, they have these things as part of their identity about having the modem sounds, like or replacing SATA cards, graphics cards, whatever it is in a computer, because they built their own computer when they were a kid. And I wanna create a beacon for all those people, for all the technology builders. Because our future is technology enabled. Humans are technology enabled. Everything we do, we can't do it without. And we don't really want to do it without when we're doing these things. And creating a community around it in the next few years, I think, is a huge opportunity. And I'm very much looking forward to it.
So good. Okay, we're going to jump to what's called the lightning round. It's where I'll ask you a question and you have under a minute to answer.
Shit.
Ready?
Okay.
All right. First question, what is a book that everyone should read?
Die with Zero is probably one of my easy go-tos. And it talks about a basic concept of any dollar you die with is a life experience you didn't have, which goes back to the only thing you can do with money is to give it to someone else. I'm not going to spoil the book, but I highly recommend people pick it up.
Yep. I will say, because you recommended that book was the one book that I can remember in almost my whole lifetime that shifted the way that I am, like my way of being and what I do, just from reading that one book, which I can't say that really about a ton of books where I'm like, yeah, I can see a visible difference of my actions because of the wisdom in there.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for that one. What is a favorite activity to do with your family?
Two things. Walking, which is a recent thing. I do very long walks in the morning, like 2-3 hours. And so if you're in a meeting with me in the morning, I'm probably zooming from a walk with a ruck on me.
Yep.
And now my kids are old enough to do it with me. By far, because then we just walk for like 2-3 hours and we talk about certain things, and it's a lot of fun. The second thing is AI bedtime stories. Yeah. So what we do at night, I open, ChatGPT or whatever it is, and I put in, this is my kids' names, and this is what happened today or this week, and you make up a 10-minute bedtime story, because I'm trying not to be there for an hour, although it ends up being multiple stories. And then, whatever they like, put it Minecraft theme, Pokemon theme, whatever it is. And usually if it's with the boys, then I have to say, add a fart joke in it because it's funny. Those things I have the most amount of kind of current kind of memory and fun times with.
That's good. We do the same thing. And then we turn it into a visual. So, of course, it's always like, I'm a Ninja Turtle. I'm this kind of character. And so good. Yeah. What is something that you believe that others don't agree with you on?
That's many things. Well, first of all, the money is definitely like a big one. I'm just very big on time is non-refundable. And whenever I can trade money with time, I do it. And if I can't, I try to figure it out. Like, how can I do that? I think a lot of people are very indifferent, or they're not as persistent about keeping their time. And for me, it's a big deal. I had an extreme sense of urgency ever since I was a kid. And I just know that I can always make money again. There was always going to be another project, but I can't get the time back.
Mm-hmm. What's a secret skill that you have that most people don't know about?
I used to be a Latin ballroom dance instructor for a few years. I used to have very long hair up to the...
Oh, I didn't know the long hair thing.
Yeah, up to the middle of my back. Before I had gray hair. That's how I met my wife as well, in a dance party. So yeah, that usually throws people off.
Yep. I like it. Is there anything that you're scared to look at within yourself, in the world? Is there something that you're like looking away from, or you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go there?
Absolutely not.
No.
I think absolutely not in any which way, meaning I can talk about anything and everything, and I can accept any single kind of feedback, and there's no secrets. And in fact, that's something that I do with my partners. So once a month we have this talk, and we're like, hey, how did the last month go? And I usually start the conversation and I remind them, hey, that guy from last month, he's an asshole. I don't want to work with him. I don't want to be him. So don't take it personally. I'm not going to take it personally because I'm not that guy. And so I highly believe in like extreme openness, like extreme honesty on these things, including with myself.
Yep, I love that. And
no areas uninvestigated.
Yeah, knowing what I know about you, that's 1,000% true. Last one, who is a leader that you look up to, dead or alive, where you think back to their wisdom or a quote they had or advice or something you watched?
Well, modern one is my current business coach, Dan Sullivan. From Strategic Coach. Incredible coach, his way of looking at the world and the mental models he developed over time, I use every single day. And one of my also favorite kind of inspirational speakers is Jim Rohn, which I discovered a few years back. And and he has a lot of anecdotes. I highly recommend for people to look up Jim Rohn videos. One of the things I constantly think about that he says is be a student, not a follower. And I apply that for any single thing that comes in. If somebody recommends a system or a product or a person or a company, I'm a student, I'm not a follower. Yeah. If I happen to like 100% of this product or service or person, that's great. But I'm going to take what I need to take from this.
So good. That's a perfect way to wrap this amazing interview. Lior, thank you for joining me today, coming on the show, flying into Austin, sitting here in our studio house. Where can people learn more about you and find you and your work and what you're up to?
LinkedIn, best way. Lior Weinstein on LinkedIn, and CTOx.com if you happen to be a CTO and you need the help.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.